Just what I want to do is videotape myself, right?
All right, hopefully this will be the fastest and most interesting OSHA meeting you guys have ever been at, okay? So I'm gonna just try to cover some of the main stuff and ask you guys some questions as we go. Easiest thing to think about in the building, I know Doug was talking about injuries and bites, but there's a lot more risks than just the animals here. So common injuries are slipping, right, falling, getting bit, scratched, poking yourself with a needle, or hurting your back. So those are the easiest things to remember, okay? Muzzle, don't mop the floor with a super wet mop, don't stick yourself with a needle, okay? And what is our limit for lifting a dog? 40 pounds, right. If it's over 40 pounds, don't lift it yourself. We have a lot of lift tables, so try to use those as well, okay? We're gonna jump here because Val has to leave and I need her for a demonstration. You wanna go into x-ray, Val?
Sure.
So we're gonna just jump into radiographs really quick. You obviously have to wear all your protective equipment. Val's gonna come out modeling for us what you should wear, and I want you guys to tell me if there's anything that she's missing, okay? Other than wearing your protective gear, there's two other things that you can do that are very important when you're taking the x-ray to minimize the radiation you get exposed to. Who knows what they are?
Column
Collimate, yep.
stay as far from the beam as you can.
Yep, that's the other one. So collimate means, you know, don't take an x-ray this big for a cat, narrow it down as much as you can, and staying out of the beam, so you're holding the dog. Try to kind of lean back, okay? All right, Val's ready. What is she missing? Gloves, yep. Thyroid cover and badge, very good. You don't have to put them all on, but thank you. I just wanted to, I like that little demonstration. Thank you, Valerie. Vanna White. All right. I'm gonna go back now that we covered x-rays ahead of time. Personal protective equipment. Everybody knows you should wear closed-toed shoes in the building. Have your hair pulled back if you can. I mean, it's not that you can't have your hair down, but it can get caught. It can be an issue with dogs. Obviously, that does not apply to receptionists if they'd like to wear their hair down. Anytime we're dealing with bodily fluids, you should be wearing gloves as well, okay? And even just if you're cleaning an ear that looks like maybe it's got something nasty in there, feel free to put on gloves whenever you want, okay? In the exam room, we want to use the lift table whenever we can so we're not lifting. When we walk animals back, we always want to have them on one of our leashes so they're not slipping out of the lead. Read body language of animals, obviously. Go slow. It doesn't have to say go slow in the file to go slow. You know, especially with COVID, there's so many more animals that are nervous, so take your time. We already talked about 40 pounds for 2 people. If we have a hazardous spill, what do we want to do to pick it up? Who can remember from our last OSHA meeting?
Kitty litter.
Kitty litter, right. So you put on gloves, you pour kitty litter over it so it absorbs the liquid. Use a dustpan to get it into there in the bag, okay? As far as how do we know what's hazardous? How do we know if we have a liquid, whether it's hazardous or not? If you're using Chlorhex and you spray it in your eye, how do you know?
Well, they should all have labels on them that have all the descriptions of what it is and how to take care
Correct.
of it.
And does everybody know that? So when you look at a label, I like how this is taped all pink, but there's a little sticker on every label and it's very small, all right? I'm gonna pass around an enlarged version of it so you guys can see up close what these do.
If the stickers are missing, we have more.
Yes, we always have more stickers, so if you pick up something, the surgery's pretty good about labeling them and whoever's in charge of the rooms, but if you find something new, make sure it gets labeled. This is kind of a big version of it, but the blue is health, so it tells you how bad is this for you to get contact with it. Is it going to kill you? Is it going to do nothing to you? Is it going to make you sick? Flammability is pretty obvious, how flammable a liquid is. Reactive, you know, if you mix this with something else, is it going to explode? And then protective equipment, how much protective equipment should you be using? So this is kind of a big version. And then it has 4 through 0, okay? So that kind of tells you. So if there was water, you're going to have zeros all the way across, okay? If we were to label water, which we don't. But I'll pass this around so you can see. There are, I don't know how you want to do that. There are sheets. There's MSDS, which is just basically there's a sheet for every single chemical we have in the building, okay? not just even these things we use, it could be soap, it could be something we mop the floor with, anything, so that if you were to get exposed to something or you wanna know how hazardous it is, you can look it up and see. And this is the binder that they're in. It's the material safety data sheet, so there's a sheet for everything that we use. So this is shampoo that we use for dogs. This is a Nolvasan antiseptic ointment that we keep up here. If you were to get that in your eye, you can pull this up and read all the information on it.
It's also on every computer.
Oh, and on every computer. It's still on there?
Yep.
Good, okay.
I update it frequently, so.
So if you do get exposed to something or get it in your eyes, which is the main thing, that's how you do it. What if you get something in your eye? Where do you go? Yep, the eye wash stations. Does everyone know how to use these? All right, I'm not gonna demonstrate it because it makes a mess.
I rotated it so it's less messy. It's almost straightened back up.
Okay. And then these binders, if you don't wanna look up on the computer and you want a binder, these are in the doctor's office, okay? They are above where Faye sits.
Julie, there's also one of these in the pharmacy too, eye wash.
Yes, the eye wash station. I actually used it there
You
recently.
don't have to come
I
running
can't
back.
remember what I got in my eye, but it was something that burned, so I used that. Workplace injuries. First aid. Does everyone know where our first aid kit is? It's right up there. Okay. It's just Band-Aids, Neosporin, things like that. Obviously, if you need to, call 911. We'd always rather have you call it if not needed than not call it if it's needed. Okay. Rosie.
Yep.
If you get injured, you have to notify those in charge so that they can report it, okay?
What if you are the one in charge?
Notify yourself.
Yeah, any kind of injury, I mean, even if you get scratched or something like that, I should at least have a Facebook message to me, just so I know, for God forbid that something were to get infected, so that we can track it. Doesn't mean everything gets sent in or anything like that, but just we need to have some kind of documentation if it did happen, if things were to go south.
Ladder safety. If you have a ladder out, which doesn't happen often, but I still have to say it, don't put a ladder in front of a door. Only one person on the ladder at a time, and watch your fingers when you're closing the ladder. Don't laugh, I'm required to do this, okay? Medication in the pharmacy. Don't touch oral medication, that's why we have the pill counters, okay? All pills have residue on them, and so we don't want you getting that powder on your hands. Sharps. Does everyone know how to do the one-handed technique? I always use it. All right, don't, this is so funny. All right, don't put caps in your mouth. I like that I'm demonstrating all the things that I would never do, so. When you're gonna use your needle, and then your one-handed technique is you put it back in here, just like that, okay? Where do the sharps go when you're done with them? In the sharps container. Do not ever, under any circumstance, reach into the sharps container. Even if you drop a diamond ring in, all right? We'll dump it out and find it. Don't reach your hand in. And doctors, try not to leave sharps in your surgery packs for the people that are doing your packs. Hospital conduct. No running, no horseplay, no throwing objects, okay? Just try to remember we're a hospital, all right? No food fights, no any of that. In the lounge, remember, try not to have food out and around the clinic. That's against OSHA. If you have a sealed drink, it's okay to be in certain areas. But we do have a lot of bodily fluids and things that aren't real great that you really don't want to get in your drink, okay? Don't put food in the dead body freezer or the vaccine freezer or the test freezer, okay? Fire extinguishers, they are in multiple areas of the building. Rosie can probably help me.
Kennel room.
Yep, there's one there.
Lounge.
Front desk.
Here.
Remember the pass, P-A-S-S, you pull the pin, you aim, be 8 to 10 feet away, you squeeze the lever and you sweep, okay? Pass. Pull, aim, squeeze, sweep. Remember to use that for any fire. What do we do if there is a fire?
Push the button for the fire department.
Yep, you can also call on 911. Do we grab our pets before we run out of the building? No. In theory, we're not supposed to. What?
Don't go home.
Don't go home. You go outside, we meet in the parking lot on the center area where there's this just little spot of grass, and you stay there. You do not go back in the building for any reason. First thing you do if there's a fire is yell to your other cohorts to, there's a fire, and then everyone evacuates together, okay? In an orderly fashion. Anything else I should add about fire evacuation?
The fire extinguishers are checked on a regular basis too.
Check annually.
Yeah.
Well, plus they get checked monthly to make sure the pressure's.
Yes.
That
Same
was-
with
that
the
was it for
exit
fire
lights. If we do
safety.
lose power, there are exit lights that automatically light up. They're in most areas of the building. And this wasn't actually part of the OSHA, but if there is a tornado, if there's people here who don't know, but if there's a tornado, storm safety, we do go into the kennel rooms is where we go, okay? We had an issue during COVID because we couldn't have clients in there with us, so that was a little bit different, but normally we go in here, there's
But we
those,
still manage that
there's
one,
no
too.
windows, and then we have the
Staff
concrete
them in
walls.
individual rooms and shut the door and. Yeah. All good in the hood.
Violence, if you are at the front desk and someone comes in and asks you for money, give it to them, okay, just avoid conflict at all costs, all right? Your guys being safe is our absolute concern, we don't care about anything else, that's happening. Thank you. All right. Pardon me? Zoonotic diseases, a zoonotic disease is a disease that, humans, that we can get from animals, okay? Yell out a few options of what are some of those diseases that we worry about. Yep, lepto's a big one. Ringworm,
Westel.
we can't get it
Oh,
from the
no,
animal
you're
though.
right.
You're right, we
You're
can
right.
get lots,
Never
we don't
mind.
usually get it from it. Ringworm, Kylotiella, which we only see in the rabbits usually. So the best way to avoid contacting any disease that's coming from an animal is wearing the gloves, okay? Wearing goggles, especially with urine. Lepto is passed in the urine, so if you're collecting urine from an animal and it splashes in your eyes, you've technically been exposed, okay? Also, we want to wear gloves because we can get giardia, we can get toxoplasmosis. So when you're setting up fecals, that's why you should be wearing gloves, because they're, it could technically splash in your mouth, which is disgusting, but it could happen. The other zoonotic technically is methicillin-resistant staph. If dogs have that on their skin, it's possible, which is a reason to wear full-length pants instead of capris, things like that, okay? And if you know an animal has something or has a strange skin condition, putting on a lab coat or something with long sleeves isn't a bad idea, okay? Doug touched on bites a little bit, we talked a little bit about it. Obviously muzzle dogs if you need to, if there's any question. What I would really like, which I think would really help, is as staff, you guys just have to speak up. If a doctor's doing something and you don't feel comfortable, even if you're in the exam room with the client, you can just say, hey, can I talk to you outside the room, for somehow figure it out, sign language, mean eye contact, something. But don't just not say something if you're not comfortable, because the last thing we want is, I may think you're fine and you're thinking, oh, there's no way I can hold on to this dog. I'd rather if you say something and we get protected than not, than to not speak up. We talked about using the lift tables when you can, if you have to lift 2 people if they're over 40 pounds, and use your knees instead of your back when you're bending over. All right. Anesthesia risks. We have a scavenging system, so it's supposed to be picking up any extra gas. Always make sure that that's hooked up. When you take an animal off after anesthesia, remember to turn the gas off, obviously, before you turn off the oxygen. And then one other thing in surgery that we can do, surgery staff, to avoid gas leakage that we're breathing in? Use the right size trach tube.
Oh.
If your tube is too small, you're gonna be leaking, yeah. And with the exotics, there's a little more leaking, so usually I stick with that and I, walk you through that myself. We did x-rays with Val. The rule is if a person passes out, we have to call 911. Sorry, that kind of bounces around, but electrical hazards, always use a grounded cord, okay? If you're gonna plug something in, don't use, I don't think we have extension cords that aren't grounded, but you always wanna use a 3-prong cord when we're plugging anything in. Try not to create trip hazards with cords, all right? And also obviously keep cords away from water. the other thing. Formaldehyde. Does everyone know why we have to be careful of formaldehyde? It's a carcinogen. Formaldehyde, does everyone know what it is? It's what we put biopsy cups in. So, I have a little biopsy cup here. So here's my biopsy cup. So this is a carcinogen, so you always want to put on gloves, okay? And then when you have, this is my biopsy, this is my mass I just removed. So you don't want to do that, okay? Because we don't want to have that all over. Right? It's water, but I switched. That was a good demonstration. No one's impressed with
Get the
that.
cat litter,
What?
get the cat litter.
Yeah, now we would get the kitty litter, and if it were formaldehyde, and that's how we would clean that up. And now this is a spill hazard as well, so you always want to wipe these things up so you don't slip on it, okay? I'm just going through, I think I covered most things. Rosie, can you think of anything that I missed? Rosie and I are your safety officers. So if there is a question or something that you noticed, hey, this isn't safe or we should do this. Oh, electrical box, we're not allowed to have things in front of that, so,
Where it's got a big sign that says do not put anything within 2 feet of the box, and there's stuff piled over there.
yeah, and don't put things there. That's the other thing, if you can put things low or do, because when someone's climbing up to get something up high, that's when it falls on your head, or then you fall off the chair or ladder you're standing on, so that's
On
another
that
thing to
note,
avoid.
standing on swivel chairs is not a good idea, so they
No
grab the
one
stuff
was
stool.
there.
Not naming any names.
The problem is in the doctor's office, they're all swivel chairs,
Yes.
and no one wants to go get a ladder.
Way to throw yourself under the bus.
Why don't you just stand on the counter?
I did stand on the
Also,
counter.
I would
pick
pick the corner.
The level of inappropriateness is slightly better than the swivel chair, but there's step stools out here.
I think that's everything's never gonna be. Who likes this better than the 3-hour meetings we've always had? All right, any questions? Any hazards you can think of that I didn't bring up?
The only thing is that we're not technically, you're not supposed to have food at the front desk or in any of the exams rooms or back here. I know during meetings we do that, but I shouldn't see like popcorn or chips or something sitting at the front desk or out in the pharmacy area or in here when you guys are doing that. Every area does have their designated areas for their water. I know they have it here. Where do you
Which
guys
the
prefer?
water needs to have a
On
lid.
top of
And
the
water, yeah,
fridge
that's my
and
next
the
thing.
pharmacy.
Anything that you're drinking
I don't
does
know.
have to have a covered lid on it. Even if it has like a hole in it, everything needs to be able to be sealed. So a cap or a sealed top. And that's it.
All right.
Wet floor signs.
Oh, yes, when it's wet, put the wet floor signs.
Thank you, Dr. Julie.